clock on her nightstand ticked its usual slow, steady beat. But somewhere beneath that slow pulse, beneath the quiet hum of the house settling, there was something else. A tapping, soft at first, almost polite, beginning at her window in the dead of night, barely audible. It danced just above the hush of the midnight wind. Each time she convinced herself it was nothing more than a stubborn branch bouncing against the glass. The air around her shifted. Thicker, colder, the tapping came again, this time measured, deliberate, a rhythm that felt wrong to ignore. Something listens with us. Tell me in the comments what time and place you're in, like the video. And subscribe if you haven't already. She lay still. The thin sheet tangled around her legs, her breath too loud in the hollow darkness. Her eyes were fixed on the window pane, the moonlight a faint smear across the glass. The tapping started again, slow tap, 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 not like random branch strikes. No, this had a pulse, a code almost. A heartbeat, muted but constant, shivers traced down her spine, the cold tickling the nape of her neck like icy fingers brushing through her hair. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself, willing the night to stay quiet. Outside, the trees whispered, their branches scraping together, a natural sound. But somehow, that tapping wasn't natural. She forced herself up. The floor cold beneath her bare feet, too cold for march, and crossed the room toward the window. The glass was clear, but no wind stirred the leaves immediately outside. And yet the tapping came again, plinking against the pane just as she reached out. Her fingers brushed the cool glass, but no branch touched it. She blinked. Another tap, closer this time. Tap, tap, tap. It was waiting for her. Her breath stuttered, condensation fogging the glass where her palm pressed. The air dropped lower, the familiar warmth from the radiator shut off hours ago forgotten. Something moved just beyond the window's edge, a shadow flickering, quick and too dark to be explained by moon or tree dot frozen. She let her hand fall and took a shallow breath. The tapping slowed, then stopped. Silence, not a breeze stirred. Yet her skin prickled. She looked back to the clock on the wall. Its face seemed dull, the second hand hesitating mid-tick. Her heartbeat thudded loudest in her ears now, a frantic drum against the quiet house. She sat back down on the bed, pulling the blanket over her chest, eyes wide, scanning the corners of the room. The tapping started again, but not at the window. This time, it came from inside the room. A light, stubborn knock. Tap, tap. The sound didn't echo like a branch, but fell direct and controlled somewhere near the closet. Her heart leapt violently. She swallowed. Must be the pipes, she whispered, even though she knew the pipes downstairs never made that noise. Not here, not now, and most certainly not with that rhythm. That slow, beating rhythm, like a second heart, backing her own pulse in an intimate duet. The cold crept up again, and the temperature across her skin dropped rapidly. Her breath came out in shallow mist, as if she were outside, though the heater clicked once, flickered, then died completely. Darkness gathered in the corners, shadows stretching unnaturally across the ceiling. Her pulse quickened then, faster than the tapping, faster than any clock should count. Tap, 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 tap. It morphed, the rhythm confused her, intertwining with her breathing. She lay back, eyes squeezed shut against the cold, warmth now a distant memory. Maybe it was just the wind. Maybe the tapping was a branch. Maybe she was tired. Maybe. But then, a single sharp rap, close and sudden, sounded right behind her ear. She jumped, a breathless gasp escaping her lips, too sudden, too near. Nothing there, only the house settling again. Or was it, she shivered, eyes flickering open to the slowly dimming moonlight. She didn't want to look back at the window, but she had to. The glass fogged slightly, breath frost curling against it. Though her window stayed shut tight, the tapping resumed, slow and deliberate. But now it was joined by another sound, a quiet, rhythmic thudding. Different from the tapping, but in sync somehow, a second pulse beneath the first. Her heart hammered. She felt it, something counting, not time, but life counting her heartbeat, matching it. The cold grew deeper still, seeping into her bones like a winter storm trapped inside her room. Shadows lengthened with gravity, folding away all warmth and pushing dense, heavy darkness down onto her chest. She could feel it now, an intent presence, a watching instrument measuring her from just beyond the glass. Tap, 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 perfectly mimicking her racing pulse. A breath caught in her throat. The clock on the wall ticked unevenly, its face slightly warped, numbers blurring as if the night itself was bending in time. The tapping fell silent again. Her eyes scanned quickly. The room now utterly still save for the steady roar of her own heartbeat. The air was ice. Her breath came out in ragged clouds. Something had counted her pulse, but counted it for what? She stared back at the window, now clear and unmarked, but the emptiness behind the glass didn't feel empty to her. It felt for the first time that she was being measured, tracked, like a secret rhythm in the dark outside. A single branch finally tapped once more against the glass, slower than before, and as she flattened her palm once more on the cold surface, that tap was no longer random. It was a whispered promise, a silent warning. The clock waiting out here was not theirs. It counted not the minutes, but the beats. The cold wrapped tighter around her shoulders. She couldn't look away. Something listens. The tapping grew louder. Not outside, not in some distant corner of the room, but somehow inside me, like a slow knuckle rapping against the inside of my skull. Steady and relentless. I tried to ignore it at first, telling myself it was just the creaking house settling, the quiet thump of old pipes, something ordinary. But the tapping, it wasn't ordinary. It was precise, cold. It moved in rhythm, with a pulse I could feel pressing beneath my skin. Like the clock, your heartbeat counting down, or up ticking away in sync. Almost mocking, I sat frozen, breath shallow. ears straining through the silence, stretching like a taut wire. The tapping returned soft at first, almost polite, then sharper, punctuated, as if something tested its own limits. It seemed to come from the dark corner nearest the old clock, the one I dared not touch. I could almost swear it wasn't just tapping against wood or glass. It was knocking from inside the clock itself, tiny, urgent beats, tapping out a message I couldn't decipher, but felt bone deep. The room chilled suddenly, cold like long fingers brushing down my neck, each tap echoing a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I gulped. My skin prickled as if the air had thickened. The faint smell of dust and rust, now laced with something metallic, faintly metallic, like the scent of old blood or iron. I wanted to rise, leave the room, slam the door behind me, but the tapping held me hypnotized, tethered by this unseen rhythm. Each tap felt synchronized with my own heart's thump. I realized then the clock wasn't just counting the time on its face. It was counting something else. Something inside me, or maybe inside anyone who dares sit still long enough to hear. The truth slammed into me. It counted your heartbeats, each tap a chilling echo that mirrored life itself, but twisted. The tapping counts what remains, not what's left behind. I tried to focus on something else to steady myself, but the rhythm intensified. Now a series of sharp taps, followed by a faint rattle. The clock's pendulum hadn't moved all evening yet. The sound suggested otherwise. The inside gears stirring, grinding slow warnings. Suddenly, a low creak from beneath me, the floorboard shifting beneath my chair, snapped me out of the trance. My eyes darted. Nothing. Just the empty room and the reluctant shadows pooling there. No, not empty. Shadows don't pool on shadows. Something moved in the corner of my vision, a flicker, a shape. I pulled my gaze back to the clock, now trembling slightly, the face twisting in the dim light as if breathing. How could that be then? A sudden snap cracked the silence. My heart jumped, my breath hitched. The clock's glass face shattered, splinters tinkling to the floor like falling teeth. The tapping stopped. Dead silence slammed down so fast, it was a physical blow. I wanted to scream, but my vocal cords seized. The entire room plunged into an unnatural chill, colder than before, colder than I thought possible without frost. Even my breath came out in quick, visible huffs, like I sat inside a freezer or a tomb. I could see my pulse and veins standing out on my wrist, throbbing each second, syncing with the memory of that tapping. A heartbeat held hostage in the arms of a clock now. It came not from the clock, but from the walls themselves. The tapping multiplied, traveling through the boards and plaster, meeting in corners and under floorboards, creating a rhythm that was impossible to ignore. The house had become a living, breathing thing, counting each heartbeat, reverberating sound from the vast, empty hollow inside its chest. With each tap, my own heartbeat hammered louder in my ears, quicker, desperate, like a prisoner pounding on invisible bars. A whispery breath escaped the darkness behind me, a breath that was not my own. I spun around. Empty hallway, the walls pressed in shadows, stretched and breathed with unholy life. That breath, shallow and wet, brushed past my ear like the ghost of a second heart pumping in the space beside me. I swayed, gripping the armrests to steady myself. The tapping slowed, then stopped. Opposite me, the clock's face, now cracked and ugly, revealed not numbers beneath the glass, but something pulsing. Something alive, a flickering glow deep inside gears I hadn't known existed. It was a faint heartbeat, not mechanical, not man-made. A pulse that matched mine, but off by a fraction, like a mocking twin. And then a distorted murmur echoed where the clock stood, thin and warped. It was the ticking, but layered below, impossible to place, a whispered voice counting down. I leaned in closer, breath freezing on the glass shards, and suddenly I understood. The clock wasn't just counting heartbeats. It was counting time left, time borrowed, time stolen. My chest tightened. Panic blossomed like poison. A metallic taste flooded my mouth as a cold realization soaked my bones. The clock didn't just force you to listen, it demanded you give it your time, your life. The very beats that keep you alive. The tapping returned, slow and deliberate now, measured like footsteps pacing closer. Your own heartbeat couldn't escape that sound. It was all there was. The clock that counts your heartbeats doesn't stop when you want it to. It counts on. Something presses just behind the wall now. Something waiting, tapping and breathing and counting, waiting for the moment it swallows the last tick. Something listens with us. Tell me in the comments what time and place you're in. Like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. The tapping has grown louder, no, sharper, like a single nail striking the wooden table, punctuating the silence between my breaths. Each tap isn't random. It's deliberate, measured, the heartbeat of something watching, waiting just beyond reach. Too steady to be a trick of the wind. Too close for comfort. I can't ignore it anymore. My fingers tremble against the cold surface. The clock hangs on the wall, motionless, its face an unblinking eye that seems to pulse beneath the faded glass. I realize with a start, the ticking I always thought was the clock is no longer just the clock. It's inside me, waiting to betray me. The tapping matches the rise and fall in my chest, syncing so perfectly it's almost a duet, a sinister lullaby by some invisible conductor. The temperature dips suddenly. A chill crawls up my spine, cold enough to make my skin prickle like electricity is coursing beneath my flesh. Each breath leaves a mist in the air that wasn't there before. Even though the windows are shut tight, I watch my own pulse in the mirror, red flickers beneath pale skin. It feels like the tapping reaches inside, tapping not on wood, but on bone, counting, counting, counting. I tell myself it's nothing, just nerves, the product of too many sleepless nights, trying to focus on the strange clock that changes with each heartbeat. I swear it hears. But the tapping won't stop. It doesn't pause for my racing thoughts or my attempts to block it out. It insinuates itself between every beat, louder now, louder than my own heartbeat, demanding attention. I lean in closer, trying to pinpoint the source. The walls seem to breathe with the rhythm, the shallow exhale of the air, the flickering overhead light, and that relentless tapping. As I watch, a shadow slips across the clock's face, skittering like a breath of darkness, too swift to catch fully. It hisses beneath the surface of my mind. You can't run from it. My hands clench, jaw tight. The tapping becomes urgent, frantic, like a warning or a threat. Something in me tightens with it, a lock snapping shut deep inside, trapping me between heartbeats and seconds I can't escape. Time isn't linear here. It folds in on itself, crushed beneath that relentless rhythm. Then, out of nowhere, a sharp crack splits the silence. Something thuds against the far wall with brutal force. My heart jumps so violently, it nearly pounds through my ribs, matching the tapping that suddenly stops, dead silent. The pause is heavier than noise, an oppressive vacuum that fills the room with dread. I don't dare breathe. I strain my eyes into the shadowy corner where the sound came from. There's nothing there, but the cold pulse lingers, like a low growl vibrating inside the floorboards. I feel rather than see the presence, heavy and watchful, waiting for me to surrender. The clock's face glows faintly now, the hands frozen at exactly 333. Odd, I never saw that time before, no matter how long I watched. That number, so often whispered in the undercurrents of stories and warnings, feels carved into the air around me. The tapping resumes, slow, deliberate, counting again, as if the clock itself breathes with an unnatural life. Each tap reverberates through the room, waking memories of something buried deep beneath years of forgotten fear. The tapping sharpens, then falters, as if hesitating. My breath catches. I remember the dream, the locket, the voice beneath the floor, the cold that ran from my toes to my ears. The idea that the clock isn't just measuring time, but the moments left before it finds me, before it counts down every pulse I have left. I take a step backward, but my feet feel rooted to the floor, trapped in invisible chains tied to that ticking heartbeat. The temperature drops again, deeper now, like sinking into icy water. My breath freezes halfway out, a whisper of frost in the air. The tapping swells, echoing in my ears. Every pulse, every breath aligns perfectly with the relentless strike that seems to come from inside. And outside me, all at once, another sudden noise, a gust that rattles the window frame. The light flickers wildly, drowning the room in fleeting shadows that dance madly with the rhythm. For a split second, the clock's glass cracks, spiderweb lines blossoming outward, threatening to shatter. My chest tightens, and then it stops. The tapping seals itself away, like a trap snapping shut. The silence is suffocating. I inhale sharply and realize my heart is pounding faster, out of sync now with that terrible drumbeat inside the clock. Something is out of balance suddenly. A voice, just a breath, a hiss, an exhale not my own, whispers beneath the louder silence. Can you hear me? It counts. The words slither beneath my skin like cold fingers dragging down my spine. I spin around. The room seems to contract, dark and close. The shadows swell, pressing in with the hum of the clock's silence. That voice is no longer a whisper. It's a command. The tapping resumes then, but it's different, rapid, erratic, like a heart racing toward collapse. Panicked, I clutch my chest as the room tilts, heartbeat and tapping misaligning violently. My vision blurs, edges darkening, heartbeat thundering against the world's sudden silence. Then, the jump. An unseen thing lunges from the shadow with a sickening crack that rends the air. My breath freezes in my throat as a fist of cold seizes my chest. The clock shatters, glass cascading like deadly rain. The tapping explodes, sharp, frantic, counting down not just moments, but me. The pieces fall around me, glittering shards that seem to cut through both time and fear. And I understand now the secret the clock holds. Every heartbeat it counts is a second closer to something far worse than time slipping away. Before I can move, the shadows close like a shroud. The room is alive with the rhythmic tapping and the cold that never leaves. It's counting still. And so am I. Your heart isn't just beating. It's being counted, measured again by something unseen, something patient, something listens with us. Tell me in the comments what time and place you're in, like the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. The tapping returned last night. Not the slow, hesitant tapping of before, light and teasing like a nervous knock. This time it was urgent, sharp, close, relentless. Tap, 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 each strike a careful imprint on the silence. It drummed not from a wall, but from inside the very clock id ignored for months, the one id put away in the attic, where dust settles like forgotten time. You remember the clock, don't you? The ornate little thing with its cracked face, the peculiar way it ticked out a rhythm too slow, too deliberate. Tap, heartbeat, tap, always matching the thud in my chest, almost mocking it. I dragged it back down last night, curiosity stealing my fingers, even as dread hollowed my throat. The house felt colder, the shadows deeper, like velvet cloaks wrapping around the corners, trying to smother the light. The tapping grew louder, but never once did the clock hand move. It pointed stubbornly to the same minute, frozen in time like a secret refusing to unspool. I pressed my palm to the glass, my breath fogging the cracked surface. And then I noticed it, the tiny pulse reflected back at me, faint but unmistakable, my own heartbeat sinking, with the ticking pulse trapped inside a freeze, ran down my spine. The air grew dense and still, but beneath that stillness was a rhythm, a gathering, collecting sound, undercutting the tap-tap-tapping. It was the sound of something breathing just beyond the threshold of sensing. I swear I felt the room's temperature drop further, the air sharpening around my skin like shards of ice. The clock was no longer just counting heartbeats. It was counting me, measuring me. Waiting hours passed, though the darkness never seemed to fade. In the oppressive quiet, the tapping shifted, skewed, the intervals stretched out, then snapped back like a twisted metronome. My skin prickled at the thought. I realized then, with a kind of dizzying clarity, that the tapping wasn't random. It was spelling something out. A code, maybe, or a message. I leaned close, whispering into the cold face, "What do you want?" My voice barely stirred the heavy air. And then, just as I pulled away, the clock shuddered violently, as if something inside it wanted to break free. That's when I saw him. No, not a man, not quite. A shape in the shadow by the attic door, lingering but unseen, moving in a silence that swallowed every creak of the floor. A tap sounded. Tap from the corner. But when I whipped my head around, there was nothing, only the suffocating stillness, heavy and thick as blood. The house is a trap. That much is clear now. The clock doesn't just track heartbeats. It tracks moments left, counting down to something terrible, something certain. I free myself from sleep, night folding into day, but that tapping follows, a constant reminder. Tap, tap, tap. The sinister drums of time running out. And then there was the sound I hadn't expected, the slow, deliberate ticking coming from inside me. My chest, my very blood, the pulse suddenly out of sync with the clock. Then a sudden pause, silence, and a sharp, shattering crack that tore through the stillness like glass smashing across stone. It wasn't the clock breaking. It was me. The tapping grew louder again, but this time joined by whispering, faint and broken, like a chorus lost in the wind. The shape in the corner reappeared, more distinct, eyes like hollowed-out coals glowing faintly in the dim light. I froze, breath shallow and cold, every muscle straining to pull away. "You're running out of beats." It whispered, plaintive, cruel, bone deep. "The clock never stops." "Neither do I." The temperature plummeted anew. It wrapped around me, the way frost clings to bare skin. I tried to move, to shout, but my voice was gone. The tapping shifted again, no longer a code, but an erratic, frantic drumming. My vision blurred, dark flickers dancing behind my eyelids. And then, in a moment that seared itself into my memory, the clock's hands finally moved, snapped forward, jerking into motion like a broken record, skipping a beat. The shrillness of the tick-tock deafened me for a breathless second. Suddenly, the shape lunged. A violent surge of cold, a sharp crack in my back. A scream ripped free, raw and ragged, bursting from nowhere. The attic door slammed shut violently. Silence fell again. Only the tapping remained. Tap, 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 steady now, but tenser, like a countdown closer to zero. I collapsed, chest heaving, the sharp sting of cold melting into burning dread. The clock sat silent again, its face unreadable, a dead thing. But I can feel it, under my skin, tracing the rise and fall of every breath. Every beat I take time wasn't just passing anymore. It had turned toward me, marking off the moments until something claims the final tick. I can hear it in the silence between taps, in the cold that doesn't let go. The last heartbeat, it belongs to the clock now. If you're listening, count with me. Tap, tap, tap. Something waits. If your heart races now, that's not fear. It's the clock, and it's almost finished counting. Don't stop listening. If you made it this far, thank you for sharing this time with me. Like the video, if your own heartbeat falls in sync, comment your time and place, and subscribe so you never miss the tap of the next dark story. The clock is always watching, and so am I.